Okay, welcome everyone to Occupation Exploration, where we are going to get an inside look into AeroTEC in Moses Lake. First of all, we have a little housekeeping to go through. I have started my attendance list, so if I've already acknowledged you, you do not need to do this, but for the others of you that are joining, could you please in the chat type your name and your school, your position, or your grade if you're a student. And those of you, it looks like I might have a classroom on. If you can just email me your list of students that are viewing this, that would be great. Okay, and with that, we are recording this for use later. We ask that everyone keep your microphones off unless we have asked you to speak. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to Mr. Bo Perry with AeroTEC. He is a quality manager there, and he's going to give us an inside look into AeroTEC. So take it away, Bo.
There we go. I think you got my sound now. You can hear me okay?
We can hear you. Thank you.
All right. So are you seeing my screen okay as well?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And any of the attendees, if you're not seeing his screen, if you have multiple screens, just go through and click on the little icon that shows a video camera, and it should pull it up. So go ahead, Bo, take it away.
All right, great. It's really good to be here and being able to talk to some young minds about aviation and some of the things we do at AeroTEC, and a little bit about myself. And actually, before I even start, I think you can see there's an aircraft behind me. This is a 747 that's being worked. We're doing some maintenance on it for the global Supertanker, which is a firefighting 747. So I'm going to stand up real quick and see if I can't show you a little bit more of the aircraft. Hope you guys are seeing that. All right, let me sit back down. All right, so the main discussion today is going to be basically what I am and what AeroTEC does. I'm an aircraft mechanic, which is an airframe and power plant mechanic, commonly referred to as an A&P for short. So airframe and power plant mechanic. As was mentioned, I'm the quality manager here at AeroTEC. AeroTEC is a company that started in Seattle quite some time ago, a number of years ago, and offered a lot of engineering services and certification for modifications to various aircraft. Now they're well established here in Moses Lake. They're continuing with their engineering and testing and certification of aircraft, as well as performing maintenance now on different platforms, different models of aircraft. Primarily right now, what we have is we have ratings to work on 737, the MAX, the new aircraft with Boeing, the legacy, the 737NGs, as well as the 747, which I just showed you all. So one more time, I'm the quality manager here with the Flight Test Center and the repair station, which is what we utilize to perform the maintenance on aircraft. Just real quick, wanted to show you guys some cool aircraft. Some of you may know what some of these are, maybe one or more. There's a lot of interesting things out there that an airframe and power plant mechanic will deal with. Here's just a few examples. That first one there, that's a 787, of course, which is built here in Washington State over in Everett. Next to that is the Airbus 0E. This is a concept aircraft that's going to be zero emissions, so basically all electric. Hopefully they'll be able to get that advanced here quickly. Another aircraft we show down at the bottom is the Osprey, which is kind of a hodgepodge. It's a hybrid basically of a helicopter with an airplane. It can do vertical takeoff and landing. As you see, the how the engines are positioned like a helicopter to lift off. Those rotate, and then the aircraft can fly forward like an airplane rather. And then next to that is a Gulfstream G5, which is a corporate type aircraft. Businesses operate this, or charter companies, or of course some of the celebrities and the really rich people own those type of aircraft. They get to travel in style. So just wanted you to take a quick look at some of those to see some of the different options that are out there for work as an aircraft mechanic. All right. So moving on to what does AeroTEC do exactly? Well, as I mentioned, we do flight testing, have done that for a number of years. Sometimes people come up with ideas for improvements or modifications to an aircraft, and to be able to incorporate that and allow that to be installed or modified on an aircraft, it has to go through testing phase. Those are requirements from the government before those items can be offered or sold to different operators of the aircraft. It has to go through a stringent testing. So that's what AeroTEC does primarily, is the flight testing portion, as well as engineering, actually designing some of the changes, some of the modifications, and supporting the manufacturers of those different items as needed to get their product to the market. Once it's gone through the engineering, the flight test phase, and everything checks out, it's good to go, then all that is submitted to the government for approval. So that's the next thing that AeroTEC does, is they assist with certification of all those different products, and of course all the paperwork which goes along with it. A lot of what transpires in aviation is paperwork. You got to keep a record of everything you do. So the next item, as I mentioned earlier, is maintenance. Now AeroTEC is very involved with performing maintenance, light maintenance on aircraft, and we're going to get into the heavier maintenance phases and modification as well. So that's some of the plans that we have for AeroTEC here in Moses Lake. I'll show you the next slide. Is some of the actually the first picture there is the hangars here in Moses Lake. We have the two large wide body hangars, which will fit 747 type aircraft, as well as in the center there you see the narrow body hangar that'll fit, you know, the small airplanes up to a 737, that type of thing. Below that, you're going to see some recent and current projects. One thing that AeroTEC participated in last year was helping a company called MagniX demonstrate that they could place batteries and a special type engine that was battery operated, in essence, to be able to fly the aircraft versus utilizing gas or jet fuel. So MagniX, along with AeroTEC, they demonstrated this, and we had a number of successful flights back in May. And in fact, at that time, this aircraft, which is a Cessna Caravan, which is about 12 to 14 people, it was the world's largest all-electric aircraft. So that's something that AeroTEC is really proud of, to have been part of that. And there are future projects coming up as well that are going to be all-electric aircraft. As we know, that electric is the future. So AeroTEC's going to be a big part of that. Next to it is the global supertanker, the 747. This is the only firefighting 747 in the world. You can see, I believe that picture was from the wildfires there in California that the aircraft assisted with this past year. So there's a lot of interest in doing conversions, more aircraft, 747, as well as other models, to be able to fight fires. Because as everyone knows, the last few years, the fire seasons have been very, very difficult, to say the least. And in fact, this global supertanker that I'm showing right now is the one that we have in the hangar, undergoing some maintenance. Coming up next week, and possibly the week after that, here at the airport, global supertanker is going to be doing some flights. They're going to be demonstrating how the system operates to some of the government officials here in Washington State, demonstrating how effective this aircraft is. So you're going to see, if you're here in Moses Lake, you're going to see them flying around a lot, dumping water. They're not going to be dumping the retardant, but they're going to do lots of water dumps, demonstrating the capability of this aircraft. So that's going to be something really interesting to watch for. Next to that is the Rolls-Royce test bed. Rolls-Royce, they not only make cars, but they make aircraft engines as well. Very good engines, I might say. So when they have an idea for an engine or improvements for an aircraft engine, they have to test that in some manner. So we have a 747. If you look on that top photo up there that shows the hangars, the one on the left, that's actually the Rolls-Royce 747. That aircraft came from Qantas Airlines, where it flew from Australia to basically all over the world. And now Rolls-Royce owns that aircraft. So right now, AeroTEC is doing the design for all the modifications that will be performed on the aircraft so that they can test different types of engines, small engines as well as large engines. The picture you show there shows kind of a smaller engine attached to the fuselage. That's kind of just a concept right there. It's actually going to be on the right-hand side of the aircraft. And as well, of the 4 large engines, one of those is going to be utilized to cradle one of the larger, newer engines that they'll be testing. So that's a long-term, long-phase operation that's going to transpire here in Moses Lake. So a lot of variety with AeroTEC, with the flight testing, the maintenance, the certification, a lot going on, and a lot of other interesting projects coming up as well. So you'll read a lot about that on the news, on the internet and so forth. YouTube has a lot of videos about AeroTEC and some of our projects, so check that out, as well as aerotech.com. All right. Now, proceeding forward, what is my job? As I mentioned, I'm the quality manager here at AeroTEC. Okay, so first and foremost, above all else, is safety. My job, along with everyone else here, is to monitor activities to make sure we're safe. You always want to put safety ahead of everything else. Never rush to get an aircraft completed or pushed out to fly. It's always about safety, making sure that people are safe as well as the aircraft. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with that. And sometimes you gotta step back and remind yourself, hey, you know, that could be me on that aircraft, or that could be my friends or family. So I need to make sure I do the best job possible. So the way we do that is when we're looking at the engineering design data, the maintenance data that tells us what to do, we in the quality department, which I run here at AeroTEC, we observe, we monitor what's going on, and ensure that the technicians that are performing the work are actually following what the instructions tell them to do. And if we find something is not going to work out properly, or there's a discrepancy of some sort, then we'll point that out so it can be corrected. The next thing I do, a big part of my job, is I have to interact with the FAA. If anyone out there knows what the FAA is, that's the Federal Aviation Administration. That's the government agency that oversees all the aeronautical activities in the United States, whether it be manufacturing of airplanes, maintenance of aircraft, modification, as well as testing and certification of technicians to make sure they're capable of performing their function as an A&P mechanic. The last thing I do, of course, is as a quality manager, is to seek out continuous improvements. How can we better our processes and procedures to make sure that we're putting out a good product, we are complying the best we can without taking shortcuts, and making things, as I mentioned, to the best of our ability, and always keeping safety at the forefront. So basically, that's what my challenges are here. It can get a little stressful at times, but it's very rewarding, being able to work with different aspects of aviation. AeroTEC is kind of a unique company compared to some of the other ones I've worked at, because there's so much variety as to what is going on. So it keeps the job very interesting. All right, so a little bit about my background is I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years. Began in 1986. So you guys are saying, okay, this guy is old. Well, yeah, I guess I'm getting old. So it's been a while. So I started in 1986. I was an air traffic controller. I worked both in the radar as well as the tower, controlling the flow of aircraft safely at the Marine Corps Air Station there in Yuma, Arizona. There was that airport is actually joint. It's military as well as the city airport. So I had a hodgepodge of aircraft coming in. So one of the things while I was working in particular in a tower, when I'm looking down on the ground and I see the mechanics, moving the aircraft, they're working on the aircraft. I'm watching the aircraft take off and land. I'm like, you know what, that is so interesting to actually see how things function, not only for the flow of traffic and keeping them separated from crashing into each other, but actually how does an aircraft work? What makes it fly? How does it operate in the air? How is a pilot able to control it? So that gave me a lot of interest into not only becoming a pilot, but an A&P mechanic as well. So that's what I pursued once I was able to once I got out of the Marine Corps, to pursue my pilot's license and my A&P mechanic's license, which I did. I accomplished both those, and something I'm really proud of. So going on, once I got out of the Marine Corps, I went into, I got a job at a company called McDonnell Douglas. They made a number of aircraft. One of them was the MD-11, as you see in the picture there. That's a 3-engine aircraft, one on each wing and one up there on the empennage, as it's called. The tail section is the empennage. So way back in the day, in the 80s, aircraft were primarily analog. They had the old style gauges and systems, and were very cumbersome and took a lot of work for the pilot to keep the aircraft safe and operated, as well as a flight engineer that would be on board to run all the systems and monitor them. With technology, the changes, now we have the glass cockpits. As you guys see, everything now is digital. You got your iPads, your laptops, touchscreen phones, all that. So some of that was come as a result of some of the innovations in technology in aviation. The MD-11, as you can see there, I wrote, it's one of the first glass cockpit aircraft, commercial airliners anyway. So that's something I got to see, the change from analog to digital. My function there is I started out as a structures mechanic, which is basically building the aircraft, the airframe side of it. And I'll show you some pictures here in just a few moments, what that looks like. As I progressed, I got into working on the different systems of the aircraft, the hydraulic, pneumatic, oxygen, all the things that make an aircraft actually function and fly, as well as the engines. So from that on-the-job training that I received there, as well as other locations, that along with my engine power plant training that I took at a university there in Los Angeles, that enabled me to get approval from the FAA to take my test for my A&P license. Another interesting thing that I did when I was at McDonnell Douglas is I was on the company's travel team. We made aircraft for airlines all over the world. And of course, unfortunately, aircraft sometimes have accidents or get damaged. And they would call us out to be able to recover the aircraft and repair it, get it back to flying in a safe condition. So I was on that team, and I got to travel a lot with that. So that was always a big plus to me, is the travel. All right, going on. After McDonnell Douglas, that place kind of slowed down a bit because the economy got a little rough, which is something that happens in manufacturing of aircraft. When the economy slows, people aren't buying aircraft as much. The airlines kind of cut that back. So what I did do is from there, I went on and became a contractor. I worked as a consultant for other manufacturers as well as maintenance facilities all over the world. As I continued on, I got into the management aspect of things, and actually ran a heavy maintenance facility down in San Bernardino, California, for a few years. I listed some of the aircraft that I've worked on: the Learjets, which are the small personal jets, corporate jets, as well as some of the airliners that I've worked on. So it's kind of a mixed bag of everything I've been able to come in contact with. The last few years, say about 10 years or so, I've gotten into the quality assurance and the quality control side of things, which is basically saying on the quality assurance, we look at how things are performed, the processes and procedures. And then the quality control is actually, as maintenance or modifications being performed, I was an inspector who would come along and check things out and verify that it was good. So that's what quality control is. Previous to AeroTEC, I worked for a company called GoGo, which does Wi-Fi systems on aircraft. In particular, the one I worked on was based from a satellite. It received a satellite signal, so it's high speed. So that was really interesting, and once again, got to travel the world for them on that. And now, as my career has progressed, I'm the quality manager, as I mentioned, here in Moses Lake, and I'm really enjoying it. All right. So basically, let me elaborate on what an A&P is a little more. As I mentioned, it's an airframe and power plant mechanic. The FAA calls it a technician. So I hold an A&P license. So I can work on airplanes, helicopters, space vehicles, drones. And in fact, there's a number of A&Ps that are working at Disneyland and amusement parks, because those parks use different systems that they're similar to those on aircraft, hydraulic, pneumatic, that type of thing. So aircraft aren't the only thing you can do as an A&P mechanic. So airframe, the airframe side of things is basically everything on the aircraft except the power plants or the engines. That includes the structure, how the aircraft is built and put together, the hydraulic, oxygen, pneumatic systems, flight controls, and the avionics. I wonder how many of you guys out there know what avionics is. I think if you look at the word avionics, it kind of gives itself away. It means aviation electronics. So it's all the electrical stuff on an aircraft. So here's an example of aircraft structure. This is kind of the old school, the old style of building aircraft that's eventually going to go away. This is the structure of a 737. You see it's aluminum, mostly aluminum inside. It has what's called stringers that go from front to back, and these rings are called the frames. So it's kind of like a skeleton system. And of course, on the outside is the skin. The skin gets attached to it. So each section of the aircraft is then a fuselage section, it's called. And then it attaches to the tail section and the nose section. And of course, landing gear. Some of the new technology, I mentioned that aluminum aircraft are going to kind of go the way of the dinosaurs eventually, because there's so many new materials coming out that will replace an aluminum structure. One of the things about aluminum structure is it's susceptible to corrosion. Fortunately, aluminum corrodes very easily. So you constantly have to monitor that and remove corrosion and make sure it's not damaged beyond repair. Otherwise, you have to replace different sections or perform repairs. The picture I show here is of a 787 composite fuselage. Composite just means made of different layers of different materials. That word comes from compose, basically, composite. The fuselage on a 787 is what's called Cfrp. That's carbon fiber resin plastic. Basically, it's plastic, if you can imagine that, ground up, and then a resin or like a glue is added to it. and then they actually make these sections with, it looks like tape. It's the strangest thing. It's tape, or they have sheets of it, which I'll show you sheets in a moment. But they actually form it onto some mandrels or forms, and they cook it. And the resin melts into it and it becomes one solid piece. So it's really interesting how that transpires. The thing about CFRP is it's not susceptible to corrosion, and it weighs a lot less than aluminum does. It requires a lot less maintenance. So the big selling point, of course, is the less maintenance, but also, as I mentioned, the less fuel. Airliners want to spend as less fuel, a less amount on fuel as they have to, because they're in a business to make money, right? So here's CFRP. This is what CFRP looks like. Some of the sheets, anyway. As I mentioned, it comes in tape rolls also. So these are layered together, stacked in a form, cooked, and then it's a solid piece. So I guess the point I'm getting at is there's always new technology, always new changes coming to aviation. So it's not always the same. You're always learning new things. And I'm going to say I've been in aviation 35 years now. Every day I learn something new. That's really the beauty of it. It's not the same old all the time. Next is just kind of a simple diagram what a hydraulic system looks like. Hydraulics are the liquid it's run by pumps and through lines and so forth to different systems of the aircraft, whether it be landing gear or flight controls, to make the aircraft turn, climb, descend, as well as I mentioned, the landing gear to extend or retract. So those are driven by pumps off the engines. When the engine's turning, it's turning a pump so that you have pressure on the hydraulic system. There's also electric pumps, kind of as an auxiliary. So if you were to lose an engine, for example, you still have electric pumps. There's on an aircraft, systems are always redundant, meaning there's more than one in case you have a failure. So things were very well thought out. That's why aviation is really, really safe compared to the way it used to be in the old days. Things have been improved upon so much. Next thing is, as I talked about, the conversion from the old days of digital to, from analog to digital, and that involves avionics. As you see in the picture here, this has fully digital avionics. You have the screens that are digital, the sensors. The pilot gets all kinds of information. He can see right away what's going on with the engines, what's going on with the hydraulics. Are the doors closed? Is the aircraft pressurized properly? There's an onboard computer that will tell him if there's an issue. It monitors as well. It can give reports. So that's the beauty of avionics. It tells you a lot of information, and it helps narrow down when you have a failure. If you have to do troubleshooting, it gives you codes just like they do on cars. It tells you, hey, here's your problem. Look at this particular component, and you'll discover this is the issue. So avionics is very, very big part of what we do in aviation now. Eventually, there's going to be aircraft that are going to be pilotless. I mean, we have the drones already, but it's just a matter of time before the airliners and corporate jets are flying without pilots. So to accomplish that, it's going to be advanced avionics. Next up, we'll talk about the power plant. So we talked the airframe, the A side of the AMP license. Now we're talking about P side, the power plant. Power plants basically are just engines, motors. Here's some pictures of what a jet engine looks like. It has turbines. There in the back, you see those discs. Those are turbines. They turn as the air flows through and is heated and burns. As it has velocity going from front to back, it spins those turbines. And the low pressure turbine actually turns the fan blades up front to suck in more suck in more air, to compress that air and burn with fuel. and to give you a forward motion on the aircraft. All right. The next one is with power plants is reciprocating. This is in essence, it's almost like a car engine. It's the same type concept. You have pistons and cylinder and a lot of moving parts that are burning gas to turn the propeller so that the aircraft will move forward through the air. So that's primarily going to be on the smaller aircraft, of course, you know, the Cessna 172s. There are some airliners actually that have power, reciprocating, or excuse me, not airliners, but some of the larger aircraft that have reciprocating engines as well. But once you get a little above a certain size, you're generally going to have what's called turboprops, which is a turbine engine turning a propeller. All right. So to talk about what are the requirements, how do you become an A&P mechanic or technician? There's really two ways you can become an A&P. Okay, now you can go to a school, a college, an aviation school that's dedicated to training people to become A&Ps. We have different regulations that the FAA has. They call them FARs, Federal Aviation Regulations, and it's broken down into different chapters and numbers, and they call them parts. So when you see on there, it says a Part 147 school, or program rather, that's talking about a school that is dedicated and certified to train mechanics for their A&P. The other way you can get your A&P license is you can actually do on-the-job training. You can do on-the-job on the airframe as well as the power plant. You can do those separately. Once you've got that OJT, you've worked under the supervision of a licensed mechanic, he will sign a document for you to take to the FAA demonstrating what it is you've worked on. And if the FAA feels you are competent to take the test to get your license, they'll sign that document. So you can do the A first and then the P, or you can do both, however you wish to do that. But it does require a minimum amount of time of on-the-job training. And as I mentioned down there, the regulations, Part 65 is the one that kind of lays out what it is you have to know to become an A&P, the different areas of the license that you will deal with on a daily basis, the hydraulic, pneumatic, oxygen, that type of thing. It tells you exactly what you need to know, the knowledge base for you to qualify to be an A&P mechanic and test to get your license. All right, I hope I'm not putting you guys to sleep yet. It's a lot of information, I know. All right, so I mentioned some of the schools, the Part 147 schools. There it shows a list of some of the schools in Washington. Of course, here in Moses Lake, we have Big Bend Community College. So that's an excellent resource to get your A&P if you want to pursue that there, as well as listing of some of the other locations throughout the state. Okay, so talking about A&P license, as I mentioned, there, you're going to be working on aircraft, be it airplanes, helicopters, space vehicles. You can work in an amusement park. There's a lot of different facets, different opportunities, I should say, when you have that kind of background for employment. There's a lot of opportunities for you to find good jobs. Some of the things they list down there, the top 5 areas that mechanics are in high demand for, of course, supporting air transportation, which is like we're doing here. Now that we're working on a fire bomber aircraft right now, but we'll be working on some airliners as well. So some of the airlines do their own maintenance, some hire other companies like AeroTEC to perform the maintenance. So that's called an MRO, maintenance, repair, and overhaul. That's what we are, as well as the flight test facility. Of course, scheduled means airline. You may have a job as an airline mechanic. You can work for a manufacturer. They require A&Ps to do certain test out and functional checks at certain manufacturers. Boeing has A&P mechanics. Once the aircraft is built, it's outside. They run through functional tests to ensure the aircraft is airworthy and has safety and has good integrity. You can work for the government. As I mentioned, we have the FAA that oversees everything we do. There's always plenty of opportunities to work with the FAA if you desire to do that as well. Of course, the last one, non-scheduled, that's what they call charter aircraft, charter operators. Like you say, hey, I want to pay you to fly me to XYZ location. They call those are Part 135 operators. So many opportunities, as you can see. There's a lot going on in aviation, always something going on, and always new opportunities that come up. So talking about future need for mechanics, aviation it's grown so much just in the 30 plus years I've been in it. It's remarkable how much it's expanded, and that's worldwide. One thing about it is, you know, a lot of us are getting older. I mean, I shouldn't say us. I don't want to include myself, of course, but a lot of the mechanics nowadays are getting to the age where they're going to be retiring in the next few years. So that's going to open just the floodgates for a lot of opportunities for new mechanics. So the opportunities are there if you want to take advantage of them.
Doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so go ahead.
It's getting muggy and gross in here.
Okay.
It's like hot in here. I'm gonna leave the door open.
All right.
All right, so advanced technical aspects of the aircraft. As I mentioned, there's a lot of modifications and improvements that have to be incorporated into an aircraft. Like, you know, just Joe mechanic down at the auto shop can't just put on, you know, special systems on an aircraft. It has to be a licensed mechanic or someone working under a licensed mechanic. There's very stringent requirements for that. As it mentions down below, I'll summarize that where it says between 2019 and 2038, there's going to be a need for almost 800,000 mechanics. I'll tell you something. Every time over the years, every time I've read that estimate about, they say, oh, we're going to need this many mechanics in the next 10 years, they're always wrong. And the way they're wrong is it's always much more than they're planned for. Well, that's a plus. All right. So as I mentioned, once again, just to rehash some of the areas we work in is flight test, manufacturing, MRO, the repair and maintenance facilities, inspection, quality, routine maintenance, like out on the line. The airlines have guys who do the maintenance overnight or during the day too if they encounter an issue, and of course, management. You know, there's opportunities to move into management once you have a little bit of a background. Quality assurance and quality control, which is the portion of aviation that I'm in presently as a licensed A&P mechanic, the quality side of things. This is talking a little bit about flight test and R&D, how we modify aircraft, some of the things we've dealt with, changing the flight controls on aircraft, the winglets, which are the little wing tip things that stick up in the air a little bit. Those help the aircraft burn less fuel. That's a big thing that AeroTEC has been involved with. Most of these aircraft that you'll see with those winglets on the end of the wings, AeroTEC had something to do with those. Manufacturing, of course, we all know Boeing. Boeing is king in Washington State, and there's other manufacturers as well. So there's a lot of opportunities to flex your muscle with your A&P license for the manufacturers. Repair and overhaul, as I mentioned, that's really been my background over the years, and the greatest part has been maintenance, heavy maintenance on different aircraft, and ensuring that they're airworthy and safe to fly again. As I mentioned, inspection and maintenance management. I've worked both as a manager and director of maintenance on the maintenance side of the house, running teams, performing the maintenance on aircraft. And now, of course, in the last few years, I've been on the quality management side of the house, the inspection, to the quality control, to ensure that everybody's following the rules and we're complying with the regulations, and making sure the aircraft is airworthy. The key word is always airworthy, safe to fly. So, as I mentioned, as in the management, you're going to oversee the maintenance and the airworthiness. the compliance to regulations. And you have to always kind of step back and remember your work is extremely valuable. It's valuable to the country for the economy. It's a big part of that. And it's important most importantly because it's the safety of people as well as the aircraft, but it's the safety of people who are flying on the aircraft or the people on the ground. We want to make sure the aircraft is operating at the optimal level and is always safe. So we always try to keep in mind, that could be me, or could be my family on that aircraft. So when we perform maintenance, we want to always be diligent to do our very best, having that in mind. So basically that's where we're at with our presentation. I just do want to talk a little bit about some of the rewards that I've experienced over the years. Is I love to travel. That's my thing. Everybody has their hobby or what they like to do. I love to travel. I like to see other countries. It's amazing. The world is a beautiful place, and aviation has given me that opportunity to work in so many countries and see so many new things and other cultures and make friends all over the world. That's what I enjoy. If you decide to become an A&P mechanic, may say, hey, you know what? I'm happy right here in my hometown. I don't have the desire to travel. So be it. Everybody's different. That's just kind of the thing that pushed me to pursue my aviation career is some of the opportunities to travel the world. And of course, we always got to talk about the paycheck, because it's always about we got to pay the bills, right? So aviation, I've found, has been very rewarding as far as monetarily. I was able to raise my kids, have a home, live well, because the pay is really good in aviation, especially on the commercial aviation side of the house, the airliner type thing. So been good to me. I can't complain. So that's basically it in a nutshell, what an A&P is. I know we're getting towards the end of the presentation, but if there's any questions, hopefully I can answer those. So Debbie, I'll throw that back.
Yes, so at this time, we welcome any instructors or students to type your questions in the chat. So to find the chat, take your mouse down to the bottom of the screen and click right in the middle where it says chat. And that'll bring up a box to your right that you can type those questions in. So that was great, Bo, a great inside look into what's going on there at AeroTEC. Any specific skill set or certifications that are needed to become employed at AeroTEC?
Well, of course, we want to hire licensed, experienced mechanics to have their A&P, but that's a really good point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because everybody, I really believe in giving opportunities to everyone, anybody who's willing to make the effort and try and do their very best. So one of the things that I've been pushing for here at AeroTEC is to kind of see if we can set up some kind of program, maybe with the college here, to allow some of the students to come over and actually work on aircraft, help us do different tasks on the aircraft, of course under the supervision of licensed technicians, but really get your feet wet, actually hands-on and see what an aircraft is really like, and performing maintenance or modification, what that's really like. So it gives you an opportunity to see, hey, is this for me? Or maybe it's not for you. Everyone is different. So we're looking at that aspect of how we can actually give those opportunities to people who are willing to make the effort and have the interest. So we'll follow up on that.
Okay, very good.
Can I add, sorry, I'm going to add in to what Bo said. I am Whitney. I work in human resources here at AeroTEC. We actually do a lot of interning with the college. We are in contact with, and Bo just started, so he hasn't had any of the interns yet. So due to COVID, we didn't have any interns last summer, but we work with the instructor there at the college, and he sends us a few names, and we usually try and bring in people that are working on getting their certification in A&P. Anyone that's, doing courses there for getting their pilot's license. We welcome pretty much everyone, anyone that's wanting to get an engineering degree. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, if you're at the college, or if that's something that you're doing at school in like a specialized course, you know, you can definitely reach out to us, because we definitely welcome people that are wanting to get into this field, because it's a really good stepping stone for you guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Excellent. So while we have Whitney on there, what is the most important soft skill when you're looking at applicants? So not going for A&P or any of that, but just soft skills that you like to see at AeroTEC.
Well, we have a recruiting department for that. So HR doesn't really look at it. One thing that I tend to look at, though, is I look to see consistency on, you know, how long are people actually with a job. You know, computer skills. Honestly, like Bo said,
Attitude.
yeah, attitude, that's huge. We have a really good team here, and everyone works really well together. We have our days where we get after each other and get under each other's skin, but we all work really well together, and being able to work as a team is huge. Taking direction, you know, you may make a mistake, but it's how you overcome it and take the constructive criticism. That's huge here. It's a testing, we're experimenting. So there's going to be a lot of trial and error, and it's just how you overcome the error,
Yeah.
I guess you could say. But yeah, I don't really do the recruiting side of things. But yeah, I think like what he said, attitude is huge. Working well as a team is huge. We have a badge that literally has our roles on here, and you know, doing the right thing, working well as a team, that's all on that badge. So
very good, very good. So we do have a question. One of our educators is asking, do we provide tours of the facility maybe after COVID is over?
Yeah, once the governor says that we can start opening up our business to non-essential employees, yes, we definitely will start opening up again. We've got the new wide body hangar that, you know, W got to tour, but we would love to show it to the community. We'd love to have students come in. We've done it a few years ago where they got to tour our Rolls-Royce 747 aircraft. They got to tour the CNC shop, or well, they got to see the CNC machines and tour the production shop, and got to sit in the hangar and, you know, kind of get a feel of what it's like here. So we think that would be we definitely want to do that again once we're able to bring people in.
Yes, absolutely. I do remember the occupation exploration before we went virtual and we were at your facility, Whitney. So very good. So your answer, Garci, is yes. So definitely circle back. And I do believe we are looking to continue occupation exploration into the future and post-COVID. So we're looking to provide many more tours of industry in our region. So very good. Any other questions? And I'm not seeing any more questions. So with that, I want to thank you, Bo and Whitney from AeroTEC, for giving us an inside look into what you do out at the Port of Moses Lake. And thank you, everyone, for attending. And we'll have more of these in the future. So stay tuned, talk to your instructors about when the next ones might be. We don't have any currently booked for tours, but we do. I'm going to ask Tammy to jump on. We do have one scheduled to talk about internships. So Tammy, do you want to jump on and talk about that a little bit?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Tammy McBride, Career Connected Learning Specialist at the North Central Educational Service District. We are working with AJAC and their youth apprenticeship program. They have revamped their structure, and they have they're ready to go live with it and up and running. And I believe probably at around the end of April is what we've been looking at. And they have a bunch of different opportunities out in the Grant County region right now, as well as they're moving hopefully up to Okanagan area. And then as well, a few others that they are working with in the Chelan Douglas counties as well. So they've got a lot of information to come, and we will hopefully have a date for you guys soon. They're looking at the end of April though, so keep that calendar. I think they were looking at the Wednesday, and it will probably be most likely in the evening. So mark your calendars for that, and then we'll send out emails and everything for anything else before June once we all start splitting for summer break. So yeah, keep tuned.
Okay, and just a reminder too to the educators on the call, we do have, Tammy has been posting all of these occupation explorations on North Central Educational Service District's site, their YouTube channel, so you can tune in and watch previous ones, and we'll keep you apprised of any future ones. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you again, Bo and Whitney, for participating today, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much. It was great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We'll see ya.